Hello, BookTube, and welcome to the first installment of Sagalong. This is a month-long reading adventure that was dreamed up by Elena Makridina. I'll leave a link to her channel below. A whole bunch of great booktubers are participating in a month-long endeavor in which we read some Icelandic sagas and talk about them. How much fun is that? The Icelandic sagas are an amazing treasure trove of wonders to read, baffling in some cases, including in the saga we're reading today. Uh, and amazingly entertaining in other cases, and not as well known as they should be. I would say they are the most overlooked national treasure of literature anywhere in the world's nations, but of course that isn't true, right? Even in the West, that would have to go to the Red Branch saga. That would have to go to Ireland. But even so, most people are unfamiliar with the Norse sagas, and so this is a read-along to invite you to change that. And the one that we're doing today is a perfect way to dip your toe in to start, because it's tiny. It's like 20 pages long. It's the saga of Erik the Red. And it's, I mean, it epitomizes in some ways the difficulty with reading Icelandic sagas, which is that they're awful strange. They're awful strange. For instance, the saga of Erik the Red has almost nothing to do with Erik the Red, and that is the first of many curveballs that it throws you. And it tells generational stories that these were important because this is bardic literature. So a lot of these things have their origins, in the midst of pre-literacy, where they are oral traditions, they're oral compositions, and they are made to be flexible. The key here is to think not so much about medieval literature as about Homer. They're made to be flexible. They're made to adapt to whoever's hall you happen to be in. So you're a harper, and you're in the hall getting food and board and shelter from the elements during a horrible winter. And you have stories to tell, and you are literally singing for your supper. You want to be able to pull in some of the genealogical heritage, mythic or otherwise, of your host and some of your host guests. You want them to be part of the story. And you want it to be fairly complimentary, too, because these are huge men with weapons always to hand. So that accounts for some of it. Some of the strangeness of it is that a lot of it is a context that we don't know. They were written down and sort of frozen in place in one of an infinite number of shapes they might have taken. And another is that the storytelling aim of a lot of the people who originally crafted some of these sagas is awed by the normal narrative standards of the rest of the West. The normal narrative standard, the normal narrative goal would be to tell a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the story would contain its own point and uplift or depress you depending on the things that happen inside it. And in Icelandic sagas, that is often not the case. So it's a little strange. You have to pick your entertainments in each saga where you can find them. And Erik the Red, I have this Gwyn Jones English language translation. The saga of Erik the Red is no different. The headline grabbing stuff is in the second half, where America is discovered, where the Vikings, the Norsemen, cross the sea and find a new land full of marvels and hostile natives and whatnot. That, of course, is what this has been mined for. This saga has been mined for the whole history of the Norse discovery of North America. But I noticed a whole bunch of other things when I was I haven't reread the saga of Erik the Red in forever. And when I was rereading it, I noticed a whole bunch of elements that I hadn't really picked up on before. And that once I noticed them when I was rereading it, I was reminded that they are all throughout the Norse sagas. One of those, the most prominent of which, I think, is the co-equal role that women play throughout the Norse sagas and in the saga of Erik the Red. The women are every bit as pronounced characters as the men. And there are good real-world reasons for that, because the women were often around. They were often in those same banquet halls. And they knew the women in Norse Icelandic sagas are extremely formidable, most of them. They knew how to handle themselves. They knew what they were doing. They had to. I think that's fascinating, and I think it's fascinating in the saga of Erik the Red when the emphasis shift to show you that the writer or the original, poet for this story knew that perfectly well. We get barely anything about most of these characters. Their names are mentioned, we're told what they do, and that's it. They move on. We don't get anything in the sense of what we would now consider to be novelistic detail. But in the Saga of Erik the Red, it happens. It happens once. It doesn't happen with a man. It happens with a woman. And she's not just any woman. She's a prophetess. She's a seeress. Gwyn Jones translates the nickname that she had as Little Sybil. And I think he does that because Sybil was, when he did this translation, Sybil was a popular book and movie. I think you could easily translate it different for an audience in the 21st century. But listen, we're going through the saga just normally. So-and-so met so-and-so, so-and-so had such and such a farm, so-and-so thought maybe so-and-so would marry him, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden we get a blast of detail all about this one person. Her name is Thorbjorg, and she had many sisters, all of whom were seeresses. They're all dead, except for her. And nothing is mentioned about that, but I myself don't think natural causes. She had 9 sisters, all of them seeresses, but now only she was left alive. It was Thorbjorg's practice of a winter to attend feasts, and those men in particular invited her to their homes who were curious to know their fate or the season's prospects. Because Thorkel, who's the character that we're talking about at the moment, was the leading householder, it was thought to be his responsibility to find out when these hard times which now troubled them would cease. So he invited her to his home, and a good reception was prepared for her, as was the custom when a woman of this kind should be received. A high seat was made ready for her, and a cushion laid down, in which there must be hen's feathers. When she arrived in the evening, together with a man who had been sent to escort her, this is how she was attired. That doesn't happen anywhere. This is how she was attired. She was wearing a blue cloak with straps which was set with stones right down the hem. She had glass beads about her neck, and on her head a black lambskin hood lined inside with white cat skin. She had a staff in her hand with a knob on it. It was ornamented with brass and set around with stones just below the knob. Round her middle she wore a belt made of touchwood, and on it was a big skin pouch in which she kept those charms of hers which she needed for her magic. On her feet she had hairy calfskin shoes with long thongs, and on the thong ends big knobs of latine. She had on her hands catskin gloves which were white inside and hairy. Look at the intimacy of that detail. It's incredible. And it shows you, I think, where the poet wanted emphasis to go. I think that struck me. And this character, she is extremely canny. We learn later, it's tossed off, that not all of her predictions come true. It's just that enough of them do. And her arrival sets the scene for what I think is the most fascinating little vignette, little scenario in this saga, which is that at one point she has to do a mystic ritual. And she needs help. She needs a respondent who also knows the rituals. And another woman in the household does. She was raised on those rituals and knows them. She can sing the songs that she's supposed to sing in order to make the ritual whole. But she doesn't want to because she's Christian. Since Christianity was newfold, it was newfound in this land, its roots were still very shallow. And for hospitality's sake and to help out with the prophecy, which she never doubts is true, she joins in. She does her part. She sings her part of the ceremony and is complimented for it. The seeress says that she did such a beautiful job that the seeress can sense that the hall is now full of spirits who've come close to listen because the singing was so beautiful. That's an amazing moment. I can't help but believe. The rest of it, the outlandish stuff of what the warriors discover when they get to the new world, is I'm sure that there's a lot of folklore mixed in there and tall tales, but I can't help but believe that what that was just described, that scenario, not only of what the seeress looks like and the small details of what she's wearing, but also that tense moment where a prophetess of the old mythology, of the old religion, needs help with a divination spell, and the only person in the hall who can help her is now a Christian. but still knows the spells and can join in for the greater good of learning the prophecy. I can't help but think that somewhere along the line, a scene exactly like that actually happened in real life. And that's part of the fun of, and just got caught, like Amber, in the tellings and retellings and retellings of this saga. And that's part of the fun of these Icelandic sagas, is finding little moments like that you're sure actually happened the way they did, where the narrative technique suddenly shifts to photo. It goes out of myth and goes to photo detail, and then back to myth. I think that's fascinating. I love that, and that's one of the reasons why, one of the many reasons why I'm glad that we're doing Sagalong, because I get to any time that I get to spend with these weird stories is fine by me. So we started off Sagalong nice and easy, 20 pages, nothing for you to read, and then ponder. You read it quickly, and then you ponder. What were the emphases here? What struck you? What did you really like? And then next we're moving on to a slightly longer saga, and with slightly more psychological heft to it. So I'll leave a link to all the videos down below. I think next time we're doing Gunnar Wormtongue. Is that right? Gunnlaug Wormtongue. We're doing the saga of Gunnlaug Wormtongue is next, I believe. And I'll leave all the details down below so that you can jump right in. You can download Icelandic sagas off of Patrick Gutenberg. The translations are a little bit old, a little bit creaky, a little bit wooden. But you can find them too. They exist in a whole bunch of things. Like, for instance, this big Penguin volume will be in your bookstores. This is in print forever, and it's lovely, and it has quite a few of the things that we're talking about. But that's going to do it for now. That is the first installment of Sagalong. You're going to see a bunch of these videos from other people on BookTube, because a whole bunch of people are involved. But I'm happy to be involved myself, because I love revisiting this stuff. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.